Recovering Queen. The Queen fan podcast where we talk about and play the songs we love. With Jay, Matt, and Ian.
Welcome to Recovering Queen Minisode, which isn't a full episode. It's kind of a small condensed, you know what we're talking about, where we take normally like a smaller song, either well-known or not, and do a cover version of that. But it doesn't warrant a whole episode, you see. And then we talk about that in the same way. It's pretty much like the normal episodes, except normally a bit shorter because there's less to talk about. One of those. But I don't want to waffle.
Normally,
yeah.
I was going to say normally a shorter introduction as well.
Yeah, often we do a much shorter introduction because we don't want to waffle on and bore everyone, do we? This endless introduction that they've heard like 1,000 times. Because the whole point of the minisodes is they're short, snappy, quick in, quick out. About the greatest band the world has ever seen and heard, Queen. My name's Ian, and with me, as ever, are Jay and Matt. Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening.
Good evening, gentlemen.
And joining us from the other side of the world, no less than a place, I believe, called Queensland. It is the wonderful Tim Robinson. Good evening, morning, that thing again. Tim.
It is that thing again. Morning, everybody. Thanks for inviting me back.
Now then.
How have you been, Tim?
Been fantastic since I saw you last. Thank you very much for asking. Hope you guys have been well.
Oh, yeah, very well.
Very well.
Good. So without wasting any more time with any mindless waffle, we're going to get straight into this by saying, Tim, which track are we talking about on this very short, succinct minisode?
The track we're talking about, I believe it's the only Queen song recorded that is a cover version. And it is God Save the Queen.
God Save the Queen off of Night at the Opera, which is a good album.
Good album.
Yeah, and this is another one where we have two cover versions of it to treat listeners. So it'll have to be a bit of spot the difference, I think, of which there are a few between the two versions. So Matthew, you covered this as well, didn't you?
Yeah, I did.
Yes, as well as Tim. What did you learn about the Methodist madness of God Save the King now, I guess, isn't it?
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? It never will be, will it? It'll always be God Save the Queen.
Yeah.
Surely, unless they change their name. But then there's always a band called King, isn't there?
Yeah.
There is already, yeah.
But
go on, man.
No, I was just about to say, obviously I didn't learn anything compositional-wise, but because I actually did probably a cover that's nearer to a sort of traditional version of it. I literally got some sheet music and covered that rather than covered the Brian May version. But I did learn that Brian has obviously spent a lot of time doing his own kind of arrangement to it to make it slightly sadder, to give it a kind of sort of more of a kind of, I don't know what edge would you call it?
It is
a sort of melancholy. There's a certain melancholia
There's
to
an
it.
Ennui about it.
Yeah. And so I learnt that, and of course I quite like Roger's timpani playing in it as well. And I've kept the timpani in, so that's something I sort of stuck back in, and Roger style drum rolls. I've stuck them in as well. Would I be right in saying this is Brian May's nod to the hat, not just to the Queen, because of course she shares the same name, but also to Jimi Hendrix and his version of the Star Spangled Banner?
That's a good point.
Ooh, good call, yeah. I don't know about it, because I've always thought, or maybe I read, that they'd heard fans singing at the end of the gigs, or some of the early gigs. And so it was a sort of an evolution of to incorporate that into actually, and the other thing, and I don't know if you got this Tim, in Australia, but when in the 70s, when was it? Yeah, in the 70s and maybe the early 80s, at the end of BBC, at the end of the evening, the national anthem always used to come on. And I was very proud at this point, and I'd always stand up, and also I'd been allowed to stay up till 11 o'clock. And And it's always had that sort of feeling of like the end of the day, the end, it's like now we can go to sleep after we've praised the monarch and praised and sang our virtues of the country. And so it's such a fitting end to Queen and, the gig. It just makes sense in every dimension.
That was back in the good old days when telly finished at 11 o'clock and that was it.
Yeah, I feel old.
I still think they play it at the end of. Sorry, I still think they do the national anthem at the end of the day for Radio 4 as well. If you're ever up that late, I think that's a little bit later in there. I think it might be 2 a.m. something like that.
Yeah, I don't remember that happening here. Although "God Save the Queen" was our national anthem when I was a kid.
Yeah,
because Australia, as you are undoubtedly aware, is a constitutional monarchy, and the Queen, unbelievably, King I should say now, is Australia's head of state. Now, I've got nothing against the royal family, but it's a bit odd,
to say the least.
Yeah. I was actually going to ask you about that. Is it? There must be a very strange relationship with that particular song in any of those, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, but particularly so Australia, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, we got our own national anthem, Advance Australia Fair, let me think, it might have been in the 80s. So anyone after that time wouldn't really know God Save the Queen. And we've got a lot of migrants from like Southeast Asia and other places, and so they wouldn't relate to God Save the Queen. But it's really interesting how it came to be on the Queen album, I think, because I was thinking when I started doing it, I was thinking, well, what if Edward VIII hadn't abdicated and there was a male heir? Would they still have recorded God Save the Queen? Because I think they still would have called themselves Queen. And so it might never have happened if he didn't abdicate. And he just a side note, he might have known something about Nazi guitars. I don't know, just putting it out there.
Excellent.
Yes, well, I mean, it's funny you should say that, Tim, because I've always been aware that the tune has been used on a few other songs traditionally, and there's I knew it was a German one, and I looked it up. It was Heil dir im Siegerkranz, and it's quite eerie or weird to listen to it in German and to find out that it was actually their unofficial national anthem of the German Empire from 1871 to 1918, and that's kind of weird when you hear that as a sort of English person, or I found it sort of a bit bizarre.
Well, isn't it still the national anthem for various other random countries?
Is one of them.
Yeah, and not necessarily ex-colonies. I think.
Well, the melody gets used all over the place. Russia even has it, doesn't it? The Prayer of Russians uses that melody.
Of course, in World War One, your royal family changed their name to Windsor because their name was German. And that wasn't really appropriate.
No. Yeah. But I guess when it came in, it must have been originally God Save the King then. Or God Save the Queen, as we often sing now when you realise you made a mistake halfway through.
Doesn't this go right back to like the 1700s into sort of George III?
No, it goes back to the 1500s. I think it's accredited to somebody called John Bull. So that would have been 16th century. That melody has been around. So, but yeah, I think it's a little bit lost in antiquity who wrote the melody and when it was first used. So there's people associated it with, like Thomas Arne is associated with kind of coming up with the arrangement of it, along with Rule Britannia as well. So obviously the peak of British imperial sort of writing. But yeah. Doesn't
it have a problematic third verse as well?
Yeah.
I don't know if that's an urban myth. I've never bothered to look it up, but I think if you look up the third verse, it's like you can't really sing that anymore.
Yeah, it's a bit.
Does it say we got sex in it anyway?
Did they had a food fight and shoved it into anybody's face? Yeah.
That would be pretty.
It's probably as problematic, yes, as the.
Now, one thing I didn't look up is when did Queen introduce it into their? When did it become their closing thing?
Well, I would have thought Night at the Opera onwards.
Sure, I would have thought that.
I wonder. Yeah.
Or maybe Jay's right. Maybe the audience impromptu had started doing it And so maybe even does it finish the rainbow? Do they finish the rainbow? Can you hear it being sung at the back there?
No,
In the back gig?
Yeah, I reckon that there was probably quite a few events where, in that era, not just Queen gigs, but the end of a cricket match or something, where people would have started singing the national anthem.
Quick bit of research done there. 1974, it was introduced. A total of 485 plays. There we go. So
so before the album. Do you know what Freddie did at the album launch? The Night at the Opera playback session for all the journalists. Do you know what Freddie did? So during the national anthem, he stood up and then told all the other journalists to stand up and called them something like, you bastards. Stand up, you bastards.
That's great.
Or something like that. So, yeah, Freddie loved it. He loved a bit of the old pomp and circumstance.
There you go, listeners. We expect full everyone standing up when you listen to the two versions, and Spotify will be
standing up twice.
Spotify will be listening, or your podcast providers will be listening. So make sure you do stand up.
We'll be We'll be looking at the data, the gyroscope data from your mobile phone as it's reported back to the Spotify server. Yeah,
but it is funny because Queen is all about camp and pomp and stuff like that. So it really does fit perfectly into everything, especially in Night of the Opera.
Yeah, I mean, how can we make this album even more outrageously over the top? I know. Let's stick this at the end.
It's also, I find it sort of quite politically quite interesting as well, because there's almost like this 76.
Yeah,
yeah. So there's almost like a demarcation, isn't there, with this and then the Pistols, "God Save the Queen" in 77.
Yep.
It's almost like a dividing line, like two plates or something that moving away at this point. So that's how I see it anyway, or it's an interesting thing to think about, I think.
Definitely is. I go back to that, Hendrix playing the Star Spangled Banner. When rock stars, performers, do nationalistic things, there's always like a statement there, isn't there? And it's interesting to know what that statement actually is in terms of Queen. They hide it really well, don't they? You're not quite sure whether they love the pomps and circumstance. They obviously love their country, but they're not particularly, mega political or anything like that. They're not, they're clearly thinking people. So it's really hard to see what the statement is that they're making, other than a musical, pompous one.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Yeah, because like in America, for example, someone like Ted Nugent plays the Star Spangled Banner at the beginning of a baseball game, and that's got so many different connotation to playing "God Save the Queen" at the end of a Queen concert.
Well, it's a particularly English thing to do as well. As in, you're right. Americans wouldn't dream of like. That's why the Hendrix thing is so big.
It's so controversial, wasn't it?
To play the national anthem
and to play it like that as well, how
he
played it. I mean, it was just shocking at the time.
Yeah. Whereas, taking the mickey, even the Sex Pistols, it wasn't particularly shocking, no matter what. It may seem shocking outside of this country, but it certainly wasn't particularly shocking here that they're doing things like that. I don't think anyway. But yeah.
I think it was mildly shocking at the time. I think that was the point of them, wasn't it? That's what their shtick was.
But you were talking mildly shocking, whereas,
Well, no, I'm being polite, because I think some people would have found it very shocking. They're sort of calling the monarchy a fascist regime, even though I don't think they were particularly directing it at the monarchy. I think it was more at the government. But I think there would have been a lot of people. And that's what I was sort of saying with this sort of Queen era. They would be like, what are they doing? I mean, there's plenty of quotes with the Freddie meeting the Sex Pistols, aren't there? But he would have been quite shocked, I think, at that sort of anarchy, which is kind of weird in it.
Well, yeah, particularly considering John Lydon and Freddie have got a lot in common. In actual fact, they're not dissimilar characters at all.
Well, just going back to the Hendrix and the Star Spangled Banner, I think. Whereas, it doesn't seem shocking now what the Pistols were doing when they're, the Ted Grundy classic interview thing. It just looks a little bit, I don't know, pathetic by today's standards, but we've moved on. It's 40 years later and everything. But I think in America, probably if you did Star Spangled Banner in that style in the middle of the Super Bowl, there's probably these days, it would probably be an even more adverse reaction to the performance.
Well, look at. I was going to say that Borat, when Borat does does the whatever it is, his national anthem,
Yes, I know.
and the horse is falling over, and there's people chucking chairs,
absolutely mad.
and
Yeah, I
going
think
absolutely. I mean,
it's
like
gone the other way
literally
in America
crackers.
a little bit, for certain.
Yeah, it is odd. So I think culturally,
I was going to say within certain echelons of America, then it's worse.
yeah. I just think it's interesting how different nations actually relate to their things like national anthems and stuff. And so it's interesting that Queen did it. It's also very interesting that Brian May actually was at the Golden Jubilee
On the roof.
playing it on the roof of Buckingham Palace, which to be fair, I thought was absolutely awesome. It was like one of those moments you go, oh my God, yeah, that is actually really, really cool.
Oh my
it's a sort of
God.
global
Yeah.
stage for a bit of Queen music, and to get, Brian May out there. And it's
Can
like,
you imagine
yeah,
the
that-
pressure? I mean,
Oh my God, the pressure is
must
just
have
insane.
been
Yeah.
absolutely insane. That guy's on the top of his game as a guitar player.
Did you hear there was an
you know.
interview where he was talking about that, and he couldn't hear a feed for the orchestra, and they said, "Oh, you're just going to have to mime it." He said, "I'm not going to mime it. You're just going to have to work it out."
Wow.
And so they eventually worked it out, and so he could actually play it live and hear.
It's the
sound
production
coming
manager's
through.
nightmare.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What? Yeah, but he does a great job actually in terms of the orchestration in what he's doing on the track, doesn't he, Brian? And I noticed on your version, Tim, it's like you put in like a lot more. Don't know how to describe it, but
Power
it
chords.
felt like there was yes, there were a lot of notes going into those bits. I don't know. It made it feel more, in some ways, more orchestral. In some ways, I don't know, or melodically orchestral.
Yeah, well, I had some sheet music from years ago, and so I basically just followed the sheet music, and I added some power chords and a bit of high guitar. So I did it in my mind as a combination of the traditional version that he did and the live at Buckingham Palace version. So a bit of guitar at the end, and in my mind, it's if he was doing it today, there's no way he would have done it without power chords. Yeah, he would have, because he's the rock guy.
Yeah.
So I think he would have done a more rocked version had he done it sort of 80s, 90s and onwards than in the 70s.
Yeah, I don't think he would have sat down and worked out, because it's not just a case of coming up with harmonies that for each note, the harmonies have got to somehow like take you on a journey to each note. So if you can go down kind of harmonic dead ends where you've gone, I've used a C major here and an F7 there, and then you can't get to the next note because it doesn't sound right. So you have to go back and re-harmonize the ones that you've done before. So it's tricky to do that kind of harmonization. That's what I didn't even attempt it, because it's way beyond what I do. I mean, that's very much in Sam Swallow's kind of area of expertise. But Brian's done a really good job. I think his version definitely, he's done his own harmonization of it, and he's obviously spent some time and been really studious with
He's
it.
done his ending as well, which is a really interesting kind of cadence to the version that on Brian's version.
And I just don't he sort of gave up on that studious kind of way of making music. Really, at the end of the 70s, he stopped doing that sort of thing. There isn't a Queen moment where you can sit down and go, yes, he really sat down and scored out and was really studious with the way that he was writing his guitar orchestrations. From the 80s onwards, he's kind of really just doing it in the studio, and as far as I can tell, it's nowhere near the effort that he has put in for something like this. So even on something like this, he's putting a great deal of effort in.
Yeah.
And it's funny, I was just thinking about, like, I always think, whenever I hear orchestration, I think, why didn't you use real instruments, especially with the sort of Mike Moran substituted keyboard type sound? But actually, for something like this, I don't think it would have worked as well.
No.
If it had been sort of orchestral.
But it is a real
instrument.
instrument.
It just seems
he's
to
playing it on a real instrument.
Yeah, as in like trumpets and well, maybe there was timpani in there, I don't know, but he's arranging it all on his guitar, is what I'm saying. But I think that really works really well for this album. I don't think it would have worked the other way around, and that's something that I wouldn't normally say.
Well, I think what Sam mentioned, and I totally agree with this, is if you play each note individually, you've got like a melody line that you're playing individually, and you hear it as a melody line, and you put all that feeling and all that nuance into that melody line so it flows. And you do that and you stack it up for each melody line on the guitar to make that harmony. And that's why it works brilliantly well. In other words, it is kind of written for single line instrumentation. Whereas when you do it on a keyboard, you're playing all 7 notes at a time. And therefore, they aren't melody lines. They're just blocks of chord.
They're
pads, yeah. And it's the same when you're playing it on a guitar harmonizer. They are just blocks of harmony rather than distinct melody lines interweaving with each other to become harmonies.
That's absolutely true. And it was really interesting when I was doing it. I really appreciated more than ever Brian's skill, because playing all those notes, when I was doing, I had the bass track that I programmed in, just because I had to make sure that the sheet music was right, and it wasn't, I might add. And then, playing along with that, I thought, oh my God, I could actually see on screen if I'm out.
Yeah.
He was doing that
by ear. Yeah.
Without that.
Yeah.
And it's just incredible how accurate it is, because I would do it one line at a time, and then I'd play it along with the bass track, and I thought, oh, I did that really well. And then I do the other side. So I did 2 notes for each note, like one in each ear, basically. And then I played that against the bass track, and I thought, that's really good. Then I played the 2 ones I had recorded together. I thought, oh my God, that's terrible. It's like a machine gun almost. So I had to do a lot of tidying up. And so to think that Brian was doing that just with his natural timing is just absolutely incredible.
Yeah, on tape, on expensive tape machines where it's actually quite hard to do. And it's a different level. And we've talked about this before, that Freddie and Brian, their rhythmic timing and their like precision is just absolutely astounding.
Did Brian do the orchestration at the start of Bohemian Rhapsody, the movie, where they do the, 20th Century Fox?
That's 100% Brian, I'm sure. I haven't read that, but it's 100%.
Yeah.
I was... That was one of the best bits of the movie.
But is it? Yeah, I can't remember whether that felt like another sort of harmonizer
That's what I'm
moment.
trying to remember. I don't remember feeling, oh no, he's used that horrible harmonizer again. I remember feeling, oh, that's Brian doing
maybe
that. What a cool thing.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
Yeah. So is that the well? Obviously, the latest example it is, but is that the the final example between here and then of that proper?
Well,
harmony?
no, I think the one that's really brilliant is the marriage of Ming and Dale.
Oh yeah, of course.
That is a brilliantly worked out piece as well. Very similar to along the lines of this, where he's studiously done the.
Yeah, but it goes all discordant in the series of
years,
which
it's
is
brilliant.
Absolutely brilliant.
Yeah. It's superb. I wish that was a kind of separate full length track. In my mind, I feel as though I've heard it, but maybe not.
Well, it's Mendelssohn's Wedding March, isn't it?
Yeah, but I know I mean the Brian version of it, because it's cut up in the movie, isn't it? And it's cut up on the soundtrack.
Okay.
There must be a completed version of it where there's no movie stuff going on.
Oh, I see what you mean, yeah.
But weirdly, I feel as though I've heard it, unless it was a dream I had.
It's a difficult one to score.
Yeah, a little bit.
Isn't it? What do you...
Are we scoring minisodes?
Well, we do, but they're always kind of a little bit meaningless, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a little bit meaningless, because we scored Procession, didn't we?
We scored Procession, which is again.
I think I tried to refuse.
Yeah.
Did you?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, we can always go back and listen, Jay. We've taped the conversation. I don't know if you've given us permission. But
So maybe
permission granted.
we don't score it then, because it's just kind of weird, isn't it?
Yeah, it is a bit weird.
That'll keep it. Anyway, it's just excellent what Brian's
7.
done.
I think that's where I'd be going as well.
Yeah, I'm going to give it a 7 as well then.
I'll give it a 7. It's 7. It's a 7.
Tim?
Yeah, I would agree. Yes, that's where I would go.
Yeah. Oh, good. There we go. Well done, Jay. You got the score, even if by stealth.
It was like an involuntary action.
Yeah.
Once I said it, I knew you wouldn't be able to
damn
resist
it.
putting a score in.
Yeah. So there we go. A lovely, nice, succinct little mini-sode for everyone, with the minimum of diversion, tangential conversations, or messing about, or meaningless waffle, needless banter, everything. So all we have to do now is introduce 2 versions of But Not Before. We say once again, thank you, Tim, so much for coming on the mini-sode of Recovering Queen. What a joy.
It's been great. Thank you very much.
What a time to be alive, chatting to someone at literally the other side of the world. Unbelievable technology, eh? So here they are,
Cheers, Tim.
the 2 versions of God Save the Queen.